Hello, everybody, and welcome to Grid Tonight, your weekly motorsports news program. I'm Adam Lemerise, and with me, as always, is Kobe Lambeth from the Podium Finish. Please feel free to please feel free to please feel free to use any to share your question in the comments in the chat room below. On tonight's show, we'll tell you who Jamie Whincup's replacement is in supercars. Matt White is here at this World Motorsport League update. Plus, an F1 veteran announces his retirement at the end of 2021. But Kobe, I'm putting it to you with big news coming out of supercars.
Yes, is major breaking news coming out of supercars, and you called it, Adam. You were 100% correct in predicting this just 1 week ago on last week's show of Grid Tonight. The young Super 2 Series star, Broc Feeney, and here's a photo of him right here from Triple Eight. It was announced that he's going to be Jamie Whincup's full-time replacement at Triple Eight Red Bull and Pole Racing next season in the Supercars Championship. As we've known for a while, Whincup will retire from full-time Supercars competition at the end of the 2021 season. In 2022, he'll stay with Triple Eight, but in a different role as the managing director and team principal. 18-year-old Broc Feeney, the current Super 2 Series championship leader, definitely has some major shoes to fill, replace in the seven-time champion. Having a good year so far in the Supercars version of the NASCAR Xfinity Series in 6 races, Feeney has 4 wins, clearly the championship favorite. Now he has the multi-year contract in a top-tier run. For all of our NASCAR fans out there, this is equivalent to moving from Xfinity to race for Hendrick Motorsports in the NASCAR Cup Series as a rookie driver. So, Adam, first question: how much pressure will Broc Feeney face being in equipment that is capable of winning every single week, especially being Shane Van Gisbergen's teammate?
Oh, Broc Feeney will be under a lot of pressure next year because he's taking over for an outgoing seven-time series champion. You know, a lot of people will probably, hopefully, that he is a really good teammate to SVG, competing for wins and championships. Broc said in a post-race interview after the announcement that when he was a kid, he watched Jamie and SVG on his couch and hoping one day that he would be able to compete along in that organization. Overall, it's pretty cool to see somebody like Broc Feeney going up and now competing in the Repco Supercars Championship alongside a perennial championship contender this year in Shane Van Gisbergen.
Yes, this is definitely an exciting opportunity for young Broc Feeney, and I can't believe he's 18 years old and he's getting such a top tier ride at Triple Eight Red Bull and Pole Racing, and being Shane Van Gisbergen's teammate. We know there's going to be a lot of pressure on that young driver. People are probably going to expect him to be up there, finishing in the top five, competing for wins. Maybe not being a championship contender in his rookie year, but definitely there's going to be some very high expectations for that young man because this is the opportunity of a lifetime and one of the best equipments out there on the supercars grid. So, Adam, I said Broc Feeney, people are going to be expecting a lot out of this young kid. In your humble opinion, what are some reasonable expectations for his rookie season?
To me, for his rookie season, to be at least have some really good top 5 and top 10 finishes. Maybe starting on the pole for a couple races and contending for wins. You know, he like you said, Kobe, he's currently a driver in the Super 2 series, which is right under supercars, and a lot of the same tracks that Super 2 runs is the same as supercars. So Broc Feeney will have a lot of experience around competing at some of the best racetracks in Australia. Give it a couple years, and I wouldn't be surprised if Broc Feeney is competing for championships in the near future.
And we're gonna see a bit of Broc Feeney this year in the Repco Supercars Championship with Triple Eight planning to enter a wildcard entry for Feeney later in the year at the Bathurst 1000, sharing a ride with Russell Ingall. I'll admit Adam is a much better mind than me when it comes to discussing anything supercars related. And based on my few years of covering supercars, I noticed the more experienced drivers are typically in the better cars in some series. When you get to the top level, drivers will start off in the lower tier equipment and eventually earn a better ride, like George Russell starting at the back of the grid in his rookie season with Williams and using that time to improve his racecraft. Being allowed to make those mistakes in a low pressure environment, now he seems destined to replace Valtteri Bottas at Mercedes next year. And other times we'll get a situation like Lewis Hamilton's rookie season in 2007, driving for McLaren, the top car in the grid. You're expected to win and compete for championships immediately, and that was a lot of pressure on Lewis Hamilton that year, but it didn't seem to bother him because he performed extremely well in 2007. So, Adam, in supercars, do most rookies typically get in top tier equipment right away, or do they drive for a mid pack / back market team and work their way up to a better ride?
Well, for me, from watching supercars for as long as I have, a lot of rookies do start out in mid starting out with back markers in mid pack and work their way up, to a much better ride. We've seen in the past where a lot of supercar drivers have come from the Dunlop Super 2 series and have gone on to have really good success in the Repco Supercar Series. So Broc Feeney isn't the first one to do this. Overall, I think the Dunlop Super 2 series is a really good series, for a lot of young talent, and hopefully one day will make their way into the Repco Supercar Series. It's a series that I follow a lot, and overall, it's just really cool to see an 18-year-old Broc Feeney, who's now the championship leader in the Dunlop Super 2 Series, make his way to replacing an outgoing 7-time series champion who is considered to be one of the greatest supercar drivers in history.
Yes, it really seems like the Super 2 Series is a great training ground for those young drivers to develop their skills so they're ready to compete in the top racing series in Australia, the Repco Supercars Series Championship, just like we see over here in the States with the Road to Indy, USF 2000, Indy Lights, and those help prepare those drivers ready to go up to compete in the NTT IndyCar Series. And I'm sure Broc Feeney won't be the last driver to completely dominate the competition in Super 2 and then jump up to Supercars. It definitely seems like Broc Feeney has a bright future ahead. And along with that bright future, as we've been saying so far throughout this entire program tonight, a lot of expectations in 2022 for such a young driver at 18 years old. A lot of people in the motorsports community around the globe, honestly, have probably never heard of this kid before this announcement. So he'll be working very hard to make sure everybody knows his name soon. With Jamie Whincup stepping away from full-time driving, his departure will certainly leave a big hole on the grid, given his career-long accomplishments and 7 championships. In 2022, for the first time since 1995, neither Jamie Whincup or Craig Lowndes will be on the grid as full-time drivers, 2 legends of the sport. Adam, you've been watching Jamie Whincup compete for many years. What's the sport going to miss the most about him on the track?
Well, for me, like I said, Kobe, I have been watching Jamie Whincup for a long time. A lot of people will probably miss him being out there competing for wins, competing for championships, competing for poles. Jamie Whincup is considered to be one of the greatest supercar drivers in history, alongside names like Mark Scaife, Dick Johnson, and the late great Peter Brock. But as we all know, Jamie will be taking the honor of outgoing team manager Roland Dane. So even though he's not driving next year, the Repco Supercar teams will still see him in the garage.
Yes, and that's one of the great things. Jamie Whincup is still going to be around. You're probably still going to see him on the race broadcast next year. So Jamie Whincup is not going away. He's still going to be sticking around, and I'm sure when the current season ends, there'll probably be a lot of emotions because Jamie Whincup has had such a wonderful ride, and I'm sure he's also eager to start the next chapter of his life.
On September 7th and 8th, NASCAR will hold a Goodyear tire test for the next gen cars at Daytona International Speedway. Some of the drivers that will be there are Austin Dillon, Denny Hamlin, Chris Buescher, Joey Logano, Cole Custer, Ross Chastain, and Ricky Stenhouse Jr. Motorsport.com says this will be a good test, to see how the cars do a speed and in a pack together. Looking at the next gen car racer on other cars, giving Goodyear an opportunity to develop the compound and give the teams and the other cars to get acquainted better with the car speed, making in-race adjustments.
And we also had two stories break today in the NTT IndyCar Series, starting with Rahal Letterman Lanigan Racing. The team previously said they were planning to run several drivers in the number 45 Honda to evaluate driver performance. We've already seen Santino Ferrucci have some good runs. Alpine Formula One junior driver currently racing in Formula 2, Christian Lundgaard, had a dazzling IndyCar debut at the IMS Road Course just a few weeks ago and really impressed a lot of people. Now we have Oliver Askew getting his chance to drive for the team, all of them contending for the third full-time RLL Honda in 2022. And the photo you're seeing right now on the screen is from Rahal Letterman Lanigan Racing. Jack Harvey, expected to replace Takuma Sato in the number 30 Honda, has not been confirmed yet, but expected to be announced in the future. The number 45 is up for grabs, to say the least. Askew tested for the team at Barber Motorsports Park, and now Askew is going to be running the final three races to complete the 2021 IndyCar season at Portland, Laguna Seca, and Long Beach. The young driver needs to make the most of this opportunity if he wants another shot at racing an IndyCar full time, reminding us why he was such a highly touted prospect on the road to Indy. Can Oliver Askew redeem his IndyCar career and outperform what Ferrucci and Lundgaard did in the exact same seat?
I believe so. I have a lot of respect for Oliver Askew, and if he were to come back to IndyCars full time, I think he'd do pretty good. Do I think he would be a championship contender? No. Do I think I believe he would have a really good shot to at least compete for top fives and top tens. I've got a lot of respect for him, so we'll see what happens in the future.
Yes, it really seems like Oliver Askew has a wonderful opportunity right here for him to restart his IndyCar career and get back to full-time racing in the series, because we know anybody who watched Oliver Askew come up on the road to Indy ladder system knows how talented of a driver he is, and I was such a shame for him to lose his full-time ride at Arrow McLaren SP only after one season, and this year he's been racing LMP3 cars in IMSA, and also replaced Felix Rosenqvist when he got injured in race one at Detroit. Askew ran race two, and Renus VK in, injured his collarbone in a cycling accident. Askew was called to replace him at Road America, so, and also Askew tested with the RLL team, the same team he's going to be driving for the final three races of the season. So it shows that the IndyCar teams still think very highly of Oliver Askew, and I truly believe that this will be a wonderful opportunity to prove to them, hey, you remember me? You remember what I did in Road to Indy? I probably didn't have the best season in my rookie year in IndyCar, but a lot of rookies don't. But I deserve a second opportunity to go out there and be a full-time driver in IndyCar. I think Oliver Askew certainly has the talent and capabilities to do that. And also at the Grand Prix of Portland, last year's runner-up in FIA Formula 2, Callum Ilott will make his NTT IndyCar Series debut. And here's a photo right here from Juncos. After last year's strong performance in Formula 2, picking up 3 wins, finishing behind Mick Schumacher in the championship, Ilott is currently a test driver for Scuderia Ferrari and reserve driver for Alfa Romeo Racing. Since Ferrari didn't promote him to a Formula One race seat, Ilott is currently racing a Ferrari 488 GT3 for the Iron Lynx in the GT World Challenge Europe Endurance Championship. Ilott also made his 24 Hours of Le Mans debut last month, finishing on the podium in GTE AM. With this Formula One feature uncertain, Ilott signed with Juncos Hollinger Racing. He'll drive the number 77 Chevrolet at Portland, and this is the first time we'll see Juncos on the track since they were the big Cinderella story at the 2019 Indianapolis 500-mile race when they bumped McLaren Racing and Fernando Alonso from the field. Ilott is the latest driver from the Formula One racing scene to give IndyCar a try. We're starting to see a lot more drivers from Europe show a significant interest in coming to race in America. Adam, many people believe Ilott is talented enough to be on the Formula One grid. How significant is it to have a driver with this level of talent racing IndyCar?
Oh, it's very, very significant. You take a look at the history of Formula One drivers competing who came to IndyCar. We all remember what Nigel Mansell did at Newman Haas Racing. He was Formula One world champion in 1992, and then he announced his retirement from there. Came over here to race IndyCar with Newman Haas, and he was very successful for 1 year before we all know what happened in 1994. A lot of other names have come from Formula One to IndyCar. Jacques Villeneuve, and most notably Juan Pablo Montoya. This is really cool. This is really, really cool to see. To see a lot of young talent from Europe coming over here to race in IndyCars. It's saying that the European. It's saying that motorsports in Europe is paying attention to all the motorsport action here in the United States and isn't afraid to give it a try. And I don't believe, and this is a really great story. I hope the best for Callum Ilott at Portland, and hopefully he does land a ride full time in the NTT IndyCars. I believe he would do really good.
Yes, and soon we'll get to see how good Callum Ilott is able to do when he races for Juncos Hollinger Racing in the NTT IndyCar Series. And with a driver who's capable of being on the Formula One grid, I think this is another huge win for IndyCar. And a lot of people can say the same about the young European driver we just saw a couple of weeks ago, Christian Lundgaard. A lot of people believe he's good enough to be a Formula One driver someday. Same thing with Callum Ilott. And a lot of people believe that Callum Ilott deserves to be on the grid next year, either driving the car that Nikita Mazepin is in right now at Haas, or driving one of the Alfa Romeos currently been occupied by Kimi Raikkonen and Antonio Giovinazzi. And it really seems like at the moment, Callum Ilott's Formula One feature, as I mentioned, is very uncertain. And Christian Lundgaard knows that his Formula One future is uncertain. So he raced in IndyCar, met some people, got his name out there. And maybe Callum Ilott will do the same. But you never know. The writing could be on the wall for Callum Ilott's Formula One career. And maybe IndyCar coming to America could be the start of a wonderful new journey for him. Next, here's Matt White with your weekly Grid World Motorsport League update.
Hello everyone, Matt White here from the Grid World Motorsport League. It's time for this week's update on our top 10, week number 27 of scoring. No changes at the top end of town. Niccolo Maulini continues to lead his 8th week now on top of the standings and probably will continue to be our leader until the European Le Mans Series is back in action in mid-September. A couple of changes further down the order. Jamie Chadwick getting a victory again in the W Series at Spa bumps her up to 4th where Alice Powell was. And Alice has dropped out of the top 10 and is now in 11th position. We have a brand new entry, Charles Weerts from the GT World Challenge Europe. He has just won the championship in the Sprint Cup with Dries Van Voor again. So congratulations to those guys. Charles has been bubbling around just outside the top 10 pretty much all season. He's finally got in this weekend after a win and a second place at Brands Hatch in their latest round and captured the championship. He moves into 6th position on 17.36, so 0.0 free of a point ahead of Lewis Hamilton, who, because of what happened at Spa, we've decided not to give out any starts or points for any of the F1. We're going to null and void that this week. So Lewis stays 7th and Max stays 8th. Very close together, 0.15 of a point roughly between those two guys. They'll be back in action, of course, this weekend at Zandvoort. So we'll have, again, pretty much half of our top 10 in action this week, with World and British Superbikes back in action as well. So it's a busy weekend in the Grid World Motorsport League. We'll give you another update next week on this week's week number 28.
Earlier today, longtime Formula One veteran Kimi Raikkonen announced that he'll retire from Formula One at the end of the 2021 season. The 2007 Formula One world champion leaves behind quite a legacy, with one of the main highlights being winning that championship in his very first season with Scuderia Ferrari. And after 3 years with Ferrari, he left Formula One for 2 seasons. He did some racing in World Rally Championship and made his NASCAR debut at Charlotte Motor Speedway, running both Truck and Xfinity races that weekend during his Formula One sabbatical. Kimi came back in 2012 to drive for Lotus, raced for them 2 years before returning to Ferrari. His final career win came at the 2018 United States Grand Prix at Circuit of the Americas. After the 2018 season, Raikkonen has competed for Alfa Romeo Racing, and that's exactly where he'll finish his Formula One career. And Kimi did say while his Formula One career is coming to an end, there are still a lot more things in life he wants to experience and enjoy. So, Adam, where do you see his next racing adventure?
Well, we talked about the FIA WEC having LMH and LMDH cars on the grid in a few years. Why can't he? Maybe he has an interest in running sports cars. You know, we could see him racing places like the 24 Hours of Daytona, the 24 Hours of Le Mans, the 12 Hours of Sebring. I don't see why he wouldn't give sports cars a try. We've seen what people like Sebastian Bourdais have done, even though it was for a year before Sebastian went to IndyCars. I think it'd be kind of cool to see how Kimi Raikkonen would do in a sports car. Who knows? Maybe he would compete for wins and championships. I think to me, that'd be pretty cool to see.
Yes, definitely Kimi Raikkonen in sports car racing. I think that would be really cool. And, given his Ferrari ties, Ferrari did announce they're going to have an LMH car. So I think that would be a perfect opportunity for Kimi Raikkonen to race in the World Endurance Championship and go for the overall win at the 24 Hours of Le Mans. And maybe we'll see him compete in IMSA as well as some of the big events like the 12 Hours of Sebring, the 24 Hours of Daytona, the Petit Le Mans. But as a racing driver, it really seems like the 24 Hours of Le Mans certainly has to be at the top of your bucket list. And another thing, I remember when Rubens Barrichello at the end of his Formula One career, although he was older, he decided to run a season in the NTT IndyCar Series, and he was reasonably competitive throughout the season, and he looked really good in that Indy car. And I'm wondering if Kimi Raikkonen would like to get a taste of racing in America in the IndyCar Series as well. It would be really cool to see Kimi Raikkonen in the Indy 500 if he decides to give IndyCar a try. But one thing that I really would love to see happen, I hope Tony Stewart and Ray Evernham have Kimi's representatives on speed dial, because I think it would be really exciting for all the fans to see Kimi racing SRX next season against other talented drivers from around motorsports. And that was one thing that we were missing this year. We had representation from IndyCar, NASCAR, Trans Am, and other series, but we were missing that one driver from Formula One. I know Mark Webber was supposed to race in SRX this season, but because of the pandemic, unfortunately, had to postpone that. Maybe we'll have Mark Webber racing next season. But I definitely think adding Kimi Raikkonen to the SRX grid next summer would be a really exciting prospect. And talking about potential replacements, there are rumors that Valtteri Bottas is the leading candidate to take Kimi Raikkonen's Alfa Romeo seat in 2022. There's no word yet on Bottas's future, but there's growing expectations that George Russell will indeed replace him at Mercedes next season. Another name mentioned to be in line for a potential seat at Alfa Romeo, and this kind of surprised me, is the current FIA Formula E world champion, Nick de Vries. Ferrari also has some junior drivers that could be placed at Alfa Romeo if they choose someone like Robert Schwartzman, who's currently third in the Formula 2 standings, and Callum Ilott, who we already discussed, making his IndyCar debut at Portland. Adam, in your opinion, who seems like the most logical replacement for Kimi Raikkonen at Alfa Romeo next season?
You just mentioned it, Nick DeFries. You know, he is the Formula E world champion. I don't see why Alfa Romeo don't give him a shot in Formula One to see how he does. To me, I think it'd be really cool to see someone like that go up against the talent that's there in Max Verstappen, Lewis Hamilton, Charles Leclerc, Valtteri Bottas, George Russell, and all the other drivers in Formula One. I think the fans would love it, and plus with Nick DeFries, hopefully in Formula One, even though he's in an Alfa Romeo, I think it could be a very good combination. Not so. To me, I say Nick DeFries.
Yes, I certainly think Nick DeFries has proven time and time again that he deserves this opportunity to go race in Formula One, because not many drivers can say that they won the FIA Formula Two championship and also went on to win the FIA Formula E World Championship. So he has two major championships right there in Formula Two and Formula E. So Nick DeFries is more than capable of deserving a Formula One drive. Valtteri Bottas, it kind of surprised me that he's been rumored to be the leading candidate at Alfa Romeo instead of Williams, the team where he started his Formula One career before he went off to Mercedes. I thought Bottas would be a better fit at Williams, but what do I know? We very well might see Valtteri Bottas at Alfa Romeo, but Nick DeFries, whether he's in Alfa Romeo, I also thought DeFries would be a fit at Williams too, given his ties to Mercedes, but in Formula One, when opportunity comes knocking, you have to find the opportunity where you can. So I certainly think Bottas, DeFries, probably going to be the two leading candidates there at Alfa Romeo. And while Kimi Raikkonen's Formula One career is coming to an end, his current teammate Antonio Giovanazzi's Formula One future is up in the air. According to Race Fans Independent Motorsports coverage website, Giovinazzi could be on his way out the door in favor of the guy we just mentioned, Nick DeFries. If the reporting turns out to be true, Alfa Romeo would have an all-new driver lineup for 2022 with Bottas and DeFries. We all know it's been an off year for Alfa Romeo. It really seems like they're focusing more on the new regulations in 2022, and based on Giovinazzi's race results, he's very close to Kimi Raikkonen. So far this season, he's only scored a single point, and Kimi Raikkonen has only scored two. And given the car's capabilities, I'm not really sure how much more the Italian driver could possibly do. So, 3 full-time seasons in Formula One, his best finish was fifth in the 2019 Brazilian Grand Prix. Has Antonio Giovinazzi done enough to keep his seat, or is it just time for Alfa Romeo to move on?
To me, I think it's time for Alfa Romeo to move on. Antonio Giovinazzi really hasn't done a lot there. And to me, if Valtteri Bottas and Nick DeFries are at Alfa Romeo, I think it'd be a really good combination. You would have you would have someone like Valtteri Bottas who's gone up against people like Max Verstappen and Lewis Hamilton, who have raced in the front, and F2 plus Formula E world champion. I think the fans would love it, and I think overall the F1 community would love it. Hopefully it does happen in 2022.
Yes, I'm sure Antonio Giovinazzi is not sleeping well lately, because when you hear your name in the news like this going around that you might be out of a ride, I'm sure it's very frustrating. And I do think Antonio Giovinazzi is a really talented race car driver, but unfortunately it just hasn't worked out for him so far in Formula One. And as we all know, Formula One motorsports in general is a very cutthroat business. And it just might be time for Alfa Romeo to move on. And we'll just have to wait and see if that's what Alfa Romeo decides to do. And in the NASCAR Xfinity Series, Cesar Baccarella is teaming up with Xfinity Series owner driver Tommy Joe Martins to start up a brand new team called Alpha Prime Racing. Baccarella will drive in some Xfinity races, but Tommy Joe Martins is going to run between 10 to 15 races. But all the talk is about the young driver that they signed for Select Racing. That driver is Roger Carruth. And image of Caruth provided by graphic designer Ryan Pastana. Earlier in the year, we had Roger Caruth on Life on the Grid, and we definitely encourage you all to check out the episode at the end of our program. The link to Roger's Life on the Grid episode is in the video description below. The young Rev Racing driver will compete in Xfinity races at Martinsville, Dover, and Richmond, with the possibility of running additional races at Pocono and Kansas if they find additional sponsorship. We also learned that Caruth will step up from the ARCA Menard Series East Division to ARCA National full-time in 2022. Rev Racing is going to fill 2 cars, one for Caruth and another year in the ARCA Menard Series for Nick Sanchez, first reported by Casey Campbell. After racing on the short tracks his whole career, Roger Caruth will get an introduction to super speedways at Daytona and Talladega, the mile and a half, and road course racing.
Miles Rowe won the Cooper Tires USF 2000 race at New Jersey Motorsports Park over the weekend, becoming the first black drivers to win in this series. A massive victory for the 4th Indy team and IndyCar's Race for Equality and Change initiative, with their hand-picked driver in mixed track conditions. Someone that was probably watching was Team Penske's Will Power, who discovered this driver while go-kart racing. And now it's time for Pick a Winner. And we take a look at the leaderboard standing. Joe is first. I'm second. Kobe's right behind me in third. Matt White is fourth. And Ben Schneider is fifth. So, Kobe, I'm going to start with you. Who takes the checkered flag for the W Series Saturday morning at Zandvoort in the Netherlands?
Oh boy, who do I pick? I think I'm just gonna go with the safe pick and go with the championship leader at the moment. I think Jamie Chadwick's gonna win at Zandvoort in the Netherlands.
That's a good pick. I'm gonna actually go and say that Vasco Visser comes back after her accident in Spa to claim the victory in Zandvoort. Well, Kobe, it's time to wrap up another edition of Grid Tonight.
Yes, and if Vasco Visser is able to come back and win after that scary crash at Spa, that would certainly be a very popular victory inside the W Series paddock, and a huge win for Vasco, who hasn't exactly had the season that many of us expected. We expect her to be more competitive in the championship. We haven't really seen that this year in the W Series, and there's still time for Vasco Visser to close out the 2021 W Series season on a strong note. And like you said, Adam, another episode of Grid Tonight in the books. Please be sure to like and subscribe to Grid Network here on YouTube. Also, you can follow us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. We also encourage you to visit our Patreon page and invest with us. Big shout out to Colin, Mark, and D. Shell for your wonderful support. Grid Network truly appreciates you for investing in Grid Network. Be sure to check out Pawbless, and please consider spoiling your furry friend. They have dog leashes, clothing, and accessories for dogs of all sizes. 10% of your purchase goes towards helping homeless, sick, and rescue dogs. Please also visit public.com, the stock market social media home. The link below and referral code gives you $5 to invest immediately. Public.com allows you to connect with your friends. You can make new friends and use tools to learn how to invest in the stock market. On Thursday morning, be sure to check out a new episode of the Women Racing the Women with Joe Samaniego and Daniel Zeri from Races the Girls Behind the Helmet. Saturday, we're back on the air for Grid Live pre-race, Grid Live wrap-up. We're working on a schedule for that, so be sure to stay tuned. We may do a special Labor Day show on Monday with the Cookout Southern 500 at Darlington Raceway, ending so late on Sunday night, and we'll definitely be sure to let you know more details later on. With that said, for Adam Lemerise, I'm Kobe Lambert from the Podium Finish. Thank you for watching tonight's program, and we'll see you next time.
Don't be an anonymous investor. Join the stock market social media platform, public.com. Invest any amount of money and share with friends and new friends. Discover new opportunities, such as new companies and potential business partners, and useful tools for beginners, and share your experience with friends on public.com. Link in the video description gets you $5 for being a Grid Network viewer. Use the referral code GRIDNET for your free $5 to invest Start investing and networking on public.com.